And after the 5 days?
After the 5 days, man, I'll tell you, I was really, by the 5th day, I'm like, okay, now it's time to implement. So I have truly a whole stack of takeaways, and I got to like actually sort them out and organize them because it was good. Yeah, it was fun. A lot of fun, a lot of good takeaways.
Because I have to tell you, I've got that 5 day sort of, after a 5-day event, head sort of, I don't know. I didn't even want to get out of bed. The thought of getting out of bed this morning was like, no. And then I realized you were on the decision table, and I was pretty excited about that, to be honest, Maria. So welcome to the table.
Thank you.
The decision table. And we just have conversations on here, girl, where we just, I don't know, there's something about the fact that I got to travel the world and have amazing conversations with amazing people. And I kind of felt a bit selfish about it because, you know, it was behind closed doors. People didn't get to hear the insights around it, the learnings that come from it. Like, we don't have it all together, and we're all on this learning journey. And I wanted to kind of share that with the world and realize that the only way I believe the world will keep changing is if we're willing to keep learning on this journey. And so that's what these conversations are about. I want to really frame it from the beginning. There is no judgment zone here. There is no right. There's no wrong. It is just truth to what you are at and where you're at. And I just, you know, the lens we are using here on this month is what I call the lens of humanity as stakeholders. And just to put that in basic terms, it's really going back to, this is not about gender. This is not about race. This is not about all those things that are bringing division right now. It's about going, what if we start seeing each other as humans first and putting the human race first? What would that change? How would that change the decisions we make at the table? What does that bring up when you hear that?
Yeah, it's really, well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me on here. I'm excited to be part of the conversation, and it's been good getting to know you over the last year and a half. So I want to say thank you for having me here. I'm excited to be sharing
welcome.
this. Yeah. You know, it's interesting for me, conversations like this bring up my imposter syndrome. So I just want to set the intentionality here and just bring that to the table, is that conversations like this bring that up in me. And so I think for many of us though, that gives us some, because I don't think I'm the only one. And
no
so
way.
I think with that, and I think what that does is that allows us to just pause and sort of breathe through that. And I've learned to do that a lot in many areas where I feel woefully inadequate or woefully behind, you know, maybe conversations around how to create an inclusive community or step up as a leader of people, you know, women all over the world. These are the times where I think it goes back to what you said, where it's about starting with the learning. And I find that when we learn new things, right, when we have these kinds of conversations, the first thing that comes up is our defense mechanism, right? The first thing is like, oh, I'm not this way, or, oh, you're wrong, you're generalizing me, or this doesn't apply to everybody, or whatever it might be. Our defense mechanism comes up. And so what I want to do is just, as you started this conversation saying this is, you know, a safe space, a judgment-free zone, I also want to say that I think that it's also okay to not feel like you are at the table, or you have imposter syndrome, or not a good fit for you. Somebody else should be having these conversations, because I don't know many people that feel fully prepared to have these conversations, or at least I don't. So I love
that. That is just so truth and so raw and so real. Because here's the thing. We all get those moments where we don't feel adequate. Boy, have I had those over the years, you know, and as a young girl, that was really a struggle zone for me. I mean, I was brought up in an environment where they told you would never amount to anything. You'll never, you're not smart. You think very differently to everyone else, and you look really different to everyone else. And I did. Right.
Yeah.
And I did sound different, and I thought differently. I actually thought, and this was for a long time, part of my journey was having to conform to how everyone else looked, because I thought that was the answer.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting, you know, you said this is being told to you when you were a young girl, because I feel oftentimes that comes up, and it's probably just the age thing, right? It's probably just like the time of our life. But what I would say is the difference between that is the overall message that I've received is one of support. And I've been thinking about that a lot, is like the difference that support can make in a young person's life. And we know this, right? But often I look at some of the women that I coach, or, just people in my world who, whose significant others say, you go get a real job, or you aren't meant to do this. And I can't help but contrast that to the fact that the overwhelming majority of people in my life have always supported me. And I wonder how has that contributed to my success, and how much of my success is because other people believed in me and other people gave me support. So
so how much is it? How much?
I don't know. I want to say like 99%. Like, I think it's really
so.
important. Yeah.
I think so. And I looked at so many. I'm a geek when it looks at patterns, and I've always gone, okay, so this was what I was dealt with as a young girl, but I don't think that that's what I'm dealt with as a human being. And so I was like, how do I hack those patterns so that I get different results? That's where it became, something that I was and then being involved with a lot of tricky, from gangs to prostitutes to street kids. I was involved with a lot of community work, a lot of youth. I was a youth speaker for many years, and I saw a lot of brokenness. And then I saw the other side, which you speak of, where there was so much support. And that, like Taki's a great example. He was told as a young boy and grew up in a house going, you can be whoever you want to be, do whatever you want to do, and you are the legend, and so we come from total extremes. And I don't think that it defines where you go, but I think that it definitely helps to springboard you off to better starts. And to have some knowledge that I wish I'd had years and years and years ago, but I've had to learn it later.
And I think that I think one thing I really learned, I would say since June 2020, when I would say the collective veil of the world was lifted a little bit and everybody became a little bit more aware of other people and people maybe that didn't look like them and what they're going through. And so June 2020 is how Kylie Francis, she's the one that used that term, and I think it's well said. And for me, one thing that I've noticed is so many people are uncomfortable with admitting that you did have an advantage or you did have a privilege, but I think it's the opposite. I think it's when we can have the humility to say, oh, perhaps one of the contributing factors to me being where I am today is because I had so much support. And then when you acknowledge that, then you say, well, how can I give that support to others who maybe don't have that in their family unit or don't have that from a significant other? I think it's appropriate to say, this is partially contributing to it. And then if that is contributing to where I'm at or how we make leaders or whatever it be, how can we as a collective give that to people who don't have that? There was a woman in my community who, and it's been on my mind a lot this week because her husband, she got a huge client and it was amazing. And he just was so, not even just like didn't care, he was actively tearing her down. And I just was thinking to myself, like, how I was so inspired by her and the fact that she is still going, even with that going on. And so what we did all as our community is we gathered around her and we gave her the support. It's not the same. It's not the same as having your significant other support, but it's something. And so, it's just been on my mind a lot recently, and something you had said brought that up.
No, I love that. And here's the thing I think is interesting. So yes, I agree that there are privileges when you've had it all handed to you on a plate and you've got people supporting you. And there's nothing like people having your back. Boy, do I know that, especially as I keep playing a bigger game. I need so many good people having my back, right? Like I cannot do this alone. But I have to say, and I think that this has to be said, is that it's really easy to get lost in the fact that if I was given that, then I would do this. I have to say, I don't think I would be who I am today if I hadn't have gone through all the challenges that I did throughout my years gone by. And I'm in so many different challenges. And I reckon I've learned a resilience through those challenges. I believe I've learned ways of, I've seen humanity and what humanity have had to face that I never thought I'd have to experience. And I'm glad I've had that perspective now. I've had to find strategies to go on when I felt like my life was ending.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'd been handed it all, if I would have that within me. And I think that that's where, I I don't know that one is more of a benefit than the other. And I think maybe we should get past that and realize that although it is a privilege to have access, that doesn't mean that in some ways that you've had more than I have.
That's really interesting. You know, when I hear you say that, what comes to mind is Steve Jobs saying, it's like, I couldn't connect the dots in the moment, but looking back, I can connect the dots. And I think that can also be really empowering. And I think it should be said. I'm glad you said it, because if I don't know, if I didn't have the support, I think I still would have done it. And it would have made me a different person. I think that is an important message that should be said. So I love that you said that.
Well, it's funny because in the comments we thrive on the mountaintop, we grow in the valley. Wow, that's awesome. Was another one. Keep it up.
Well said.
What do you think? Do you think we thrive on the mountaintop? We grow in the valley?
I don't think I understand the expression. I think you should. I think you should explain the expression and then.
Okay, whoever it is, because on here on StreamYard, you're a Facebook user. If so, please explain so we know what we thrive on the mountaintop. So what they're saying is, because when we get to the top, we get to enjoy that view. We get to enjoy the hard work that we've put in, and we get to experience that moment of reaching where, like for me, that's what the mountaintop is, right? But I always think we've always got to get over the other side. So I think every mountaintop has the next valley that you've got to go through. Right,
that's what I'm saying.
Challenge.
Yeah. Because I was thinking the same thing. I don't feel like I've hit, I think there's lots of mountaintops, and I don't even feel like I've hit my first mountaintop. So I don't know that I don't know. Like, I think when I think of myself and where I'm at, I think I'm like halfway up the first mountain. Like, it's probably because it's probably just where I'm at in my journey. So I don't know. I'd have to get to the top of the mountain.
I wouldn't say that, because if you think about it, you've had moments even in business where you have gone, I'm not sure what.
Yeah.
That, and that was one of your valleys. But then you've had that moment where you've gone, oh my gosh, look how I get to impact all these amazing women.
Yeah. So that's interesting though. I think for me though, I wouldn't say thrive on the mountains. I wouldn't say that. I think it's like the obstacle is the way. That's what I say. It's like,
tell me more about that.
Yeah, through that, and it's a total core value of mine. It's the obstacle is the way. My father's very, very Catholic, and he says, like, we embrace the cross. When we embrace the cross, we thrive. I would say the obstacle is the way, but it's the same idea. It's that it's through the challenges that's the solution. I'll give a really specific example of that. When my Facebook account was shut down, and I couldn't advertise, and it was one of the most devastating moments in my business to date, because I had a lot of people on payroll. I had to let some people go. I had to step up as a leader more than I've ever had to. And it was really hard. But it was through that obstacle of Facebook unfairly taking away everything we had worked so hard to build that I got through it. I have a better team, a tighter team, a more loyal team. I'm a better leader. Our lead flow is so much more stable. But I had to, in that moment, wake up, let half my team go on that Monday, worst Monday of my life, had to let half my team go. And it was through that obstacle that we came out the other side, a better, stronger business. And so that's just one example, but that's the phrase.
But here's the thing that I think that we can take from that, right? And this is what I want us not to miss out, because everyone keeps talking about this whole privilege thing, but you learned it because you were in the valley. You learned for you to have to step it up, to go, how do I be a better leader? What does it need to take for me to get this back up to where we need it to go?
It's true. It's true. I think that it's, people should know with my story, my family, I was one of 9 kids, and my dad was an adjunct English professor. Yeah. I'm the oldest of 9. And my dad was an adjunct English professor. So it's not, my family worked from the bottom, not the bottom up, but like we worked really hard is the thing. And so like I've had to work very, very hard for everything that I've gotten, and I've been proud to. I've been happy to. But it is a really important part of my story, where I started, and I think it's an important part of it, and it shouldn't be ignored, because I don't think people know the amount of work that I had to put into to get where I am. And you're right, like it shouldn't be dismissed.
Yeah. What about, so was there expectations because you feel you had to work and get where you are, and then those expectations have kept going? Because I wonder if there's a correlation between that and, the imposter syndrome.
That's interesting. No, I think I have imposter syndrome because I respect and admire you, and I respect and admire the other leaders you've had on the table. I think I have imposter syndrome because of my age. It's me and then a bunch of like other people on board. I feel like I'm half the age of a lot of people in my friend group and in my colleagues, and I like that. I like that push. The drive to do what I'm doing is from my competitive nature. It's just a desire to see my full potential. I told this to my husband a long time ago. It's not about the money for me. I just want to level up. I just want to see what I can do with this. I believe we have one life. I want to see what I can do in my one life. So that's where that comes from, and it's a blessing and a curse.
But isn't that expectations?
If it's expectations, it's the ones I put on myself. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
I didn't say what others are putting on you.
Yeah.
Right?
And I'm a very hard taskmaster. Yeah. Yeah.
You and me both. We both are. Like I'm a really results oriented person, which is that competitive side, right? And in that way, I also want to be achieving at really high levels. But here's the thing I don't do, and this is only now. And so learn from my years of wisdom, but I let go of the comparison moment many years ago. And I had to do that. And particularly in the world that I know that you're in, there is a lot of comparison. And, who's doing the best model, who's doing the best, got the biggest group and the numbers and the getting the next best thing down there. And you had to get, like, I literally had to get away from comparison and go, well, what is my race? What does that need to look like? And I have to say to you, girl, I don't look at you as a young girl that has nothing to add to the table. That's why I want you on the table, because I believe you have so much to add. My kids have taught me so much. Wow. And, they are always my learning ground as much as anywhere else in this world. And here's the thing. It is you and the next generations and the generations. I've got grandchildren now. Like I'm a Gigi. And so like, it's so important that I'm listening to what is needed, because I want to leave behind a legacy that they can springboard off.
That makes a lot of sense.
What you bring is so awesome.
I really appreciate you saying that. I even find for me, I even start, they say like Generation Z, like I listen, I'm just starting to see that there's a generation under me. As I approach my 30s, I start noticing there's a generation under me, which is funny. But I find, I look at their patterns, so I can, in just a little way, relate to what you're saying. And I appreciate you saying that. I feel that a lot of my philosophy, though, and the way I think, is very mature. I think I've always been very mature for my age. So I don't know that I speak for most people my age, but I can speak to my own life experiences and what I've gone through and what I think.
What is interesting about that, though, and I can relate to this, by the way, is I've always looked younger than my age. I'd like to think I still look younger than my age.
I did have no idea you were Gigi, so I would say, yeah, you still are.
Okay, so I'm about to hit the 50 soon, and I'm determined by the time I hit that 50 mark, I'm going to look way better than I did at the 40 mark. So that is where I'm aiming for right now, and I think a lot of it's inside of who you are and where you're at life as well.
1000%.
What I wanted to just push in on that piece is that I have had many mentors over the years, right from a young girl, who were way older than I was. And that was on purpose, because I wanted to hear what they have learned. I wanted to learn from those things, the good and the bad, because I wanted to hear what I didn't want to make the same mistake. And I have to tell you, it has been unbelievable having older mentors, because I also then would go, I was like you, that I would be the mature one in my lot. I was a young mama. I was young at everything, and everyone else was doing partying, and I was learning how to do life and bring money into the house and do all sorts of different things while others are out partying. And I didn't travel the world like a lot of my friends did at that time. And so I was experiencing a world that many weren't my age at that time. And I am so glad I got to experience it. But I also are thankful for a couple of people who were in my world. And a huge shout out to my mate, Sue Booth. She was one of them. And she was like a mama bear to me for a long time. She was then like a colleague with me because I ran youth, and she was the other, they were the ones that ran it. And so there was like that support on that side of it. And then she was and has been all my life one of my biggest fans. But she's also told me off when she thinks I'm naughty.
Hey, but that's a sign of a good fan. That's a sign of that's the sign of a real friend. No, that's why I love you guys in boardroom. My gosh, you're always on my ass in a good way. Yeah, we do. We have
to get past this whole age thing.
Yeah, we do. I think it's really good that you say that. I appreciate you. I appreciate you saying that. I think I'm ready to like. It's time. It's good. But I also think that there's, for me, I've always promised to show up authentically ever since I started my business 8 years ago. Like, I'm just going to show up and be myself. And I think that's worked really well for me. Like I have no sense of, I'm sure we all have ego, but my ego is placed pretty low key because I just inherently trust that people are going to be okay if I show up as myself. And so when I start a conversation like this and say I have imposter syndrome, it's just because I'm speaking what's going on in my mind, and it starts good conversations, I think.
Yeah, but I also think that there's so much we can learn from that because you are not the only one that has come on here and gone, well, I guess one of the things is imposter syndrome. You know, I think this is a real thing. But I also, if we clunk it up a little now and we think of this as a global thing, you're not the only one. There's many across the globe that are facing this as well. How do we change that in society?
I think by looking at models, like mentors, people who have done it. If you see, for me, I would look at women my age, you know, maybe a couple years older than me, and they were doing it. They were rocking and rolling it, and they were running successful businesses, and they were, you know, just doing all the things I wanted to do. And it was because they modeled it for me, and they were brave enough to put themselves out there and say, hey, I'm doing this, and I'm unapologetic about it, and it's awesome, and you can do it too. It proved that, okay, somebody can do this. You know, I might be a little bit, and, you know, I might be feeling the imposter syndrome a little bit, but somebody can do this. And that's why I talk about what I do and share my wins and my lows too, because I think it's really important for very young women to see that they can do it at a very young age. You know, I've been able to build a 7-figure business before I hit my 30s. And I think it's important we talk about that. I think it's important we model that. And that is another reason why I bring up my age every so often, is because I think it's actually empowering. I think it actually can speak to that girl who maybe just graduated college, is in a lot of student debt, really hating her corporate job, but doesn't know what the solution to that is. You know, she knows she's made for more deep down, but she needs somebody like me to show up and say, hey, you know, if you wanted to make a living doing what you love, being passionate about it, you could. And so I think it's the models.
That. So what are you modeling for them, as in those that are following you? What are you hoping they get?
I think I want to first and foremost show that it's possible. I think a lot of people doubt it. A lot of people doubt it. And so I think that's the big thing. And the most important thing is just, it is possible. That's why I share my numbers. Like, I share screenshots and my numbers. That's why I share the highs and lows, because I feel so many people sugarcoat entrepreneurship. At least a lot of girls on Instagram sugarcoat entrepreneurship. And so you have to show the lows, because if you don't know that there's lows, you're going to be one of those 95% of entrepreneurs who don't make it past 10 years or whatever the stat is, right? Most people don't make it as entrepreneurs because they only see the shiny stuff. They only see the sexy funnels that say, make $1 million in an hour by showing up, you know, whatever. So I talk about the lows because it's important, because that helps them stay in the game. And then I model a combination of working hard and working smart. I think most people don't strike a balance. They'll either work really, really hard and they'll hustle and burn out, which we don't like. But then I also think that they have an unrealistic expectation and say, oh, if I just journal, I'll run a successful business. I think there's a balance. And so I try to model the balance of work. You know, you have to put the time in, you have to put the work in, and it's good when you love it and you're having fun. I'll never be afraid of hard work, but you also want to be strategic and you want to make a good use of your time. Dan Martell talked a lot about that in one of our sessions. So that's what I try to model.
What is balance to you?
Right. I think it changes based on the season of your life. So for me right now, balance is leaving it all on the field, to use a sports impression. You know, you're leaving it all on the field during the week and then totally unplugging on the weekends. So I do work pretty hard during the week, but it's work I love. I think you have to be doing work you love. That's part of the balance. Is if I'm working hard during the week, doing things I hate, that's not very balanced. And then it's fully unplugging on the weekends for me.
I think that's an interesting thing that you just said there of doing work that you love. And
Mm.
I'm wondering about this whole balance thing of what even that balance looks like for me. I think there is balance. I know lots will
Mm.
argue that you cannot get balance, but I think there is a balance for you as an
Right.
individual.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And the world has their norms, and then they say, okay, if you do this, this will be balanced. And it's like going to the gym and going, here's the workout that everyone needs to do. And if you do that, you're going to be blah, 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 blah.
Right.
This does not work like this. So I
Absolutely.
think there is absolute balance for you as an individual. But I think one of those things you pushed on, and that was if you love what you do. And I think this is an interesting thing, because I think even if we think of imposter syndrome, there's a lot of people who are doing things because there are expectations, or there are others that, or they've put them on themselves to go, you know, I always thought I was going to be this, and so I'm just doing this because that's what I'm trained in.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's a lot of unhappy people that are working, whether it's short hours, long hours, but they're working in something they don't like to do.
Right.
And I think
Right.
that I love how you said, as long as you love what you're doing, because and that balance for me is a tricky piece, because I really love my work.
Right. That's the curse of entrepreneurship. Is some,
Right?
if we don't control it, we're all workaholics because we love it. So I think there has to be some intentionality with that. But then also, I like that you said, like, it's personal, because I know that for me, there's times where I've been loving it, and I had what would people, if somebody didn't love it, that would be an insane schedule. But because I was thriving doing that, it felt really good. It was energizing me. Tanya talks a lot about this, is that when we show up and we serve, which is what I love to do, it actually can energize us. So, you can spend a day doing work that is, objectively a long day, but you're buzzing by the end of the day because you did work that you were loving, and because you were serving others. That's what energizes me, is service to others. And so those are my energizers. So yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head.
And I love that. And here's the other piece. I love the fact that, for you, weekends, you take off and you
1000%.
do your thing. So I love to do, I call curate moments. So I have to have moments in my schedule that refuel me. And so there's different ways, and I've had to learn what that refuel looks like. But I get those moments, I get them and refuel me. If I don't get them within my schedule, then it all just becomes work, and I don't enjoy it.
And that's the funny thing, is exactly, that's when you're off balance, is because even the stuff that you love, you're kind of hauling ass a little bit. You're dragging ass a little bit to do it. And that's how it's, oh, okay, I need to make sure I'm unplugged fully next weekend is how I know. But you find what works for you. I think it's different for everybody.
What refuels you?
Watching TV for like 12 hours straight. That's what I do. Like I do. I will sit there. This is my couch. I will sit there and I'll watch TV the whole day long. And that to me is just, it's the luxury of time. And I'm an introvert. So it's the luxury of time and not talking to anybody. So I'll sit there, I'll get a little drink, a little snacks, and I'll just I'll do like a whole movie marathon for like the whole day.
I thought it was just me.
No,
I love that too.
No, that's luxury. That is living the good life. Yeah.
I watch some random series, and usually something really like the opposite to my world.
Yeah.
And usually either a detective or a mafia or some crazy thing.
Some murder mystery thing. Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Oh my gosh. No, that's my luxurious weekend. Yeah.
Talk to me about the introvert thing, because I find this fascinating. One of the reasons I was known for a long time as kind of a secret sauce, and I was actually okay to be the secret sauce behind some of the really amazing people across the world, and I was really good with that. And then I realized that if I was to do what I'm meant to do in this world, that I felt as part of my calling in life, that I actually needed to step up and out of being secret sauce to building something on a bigger platform. And you do an amazing job of building a bigger platform. And that fascinates me when I hear that you're an introvert. I mean, I knew you were an introvert. Yeah. The fact that, in most sessions I see you with your camera, with you on the side there working away. Like there are so many signs that showed me that you were introvert, but it fascinates me that you can build such a community knowing that that's a truth.
Yeah. So for me, I define introvert as, being, some people get energized by people, so others get energized by silence and alone time. And I get energized by silence and alone time. And so if that's the definition of introvert, I am. But I think this goes back to the balance, because I know that, okay, if I'm going to spend my week talking to people and giving it my all, because I do, that's just, I can't help it. I'm 100% or I'm 0. I know. Yeah. I like, that's good. I need to be really intentional with my time off. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to do this. And so, yes, like I'll show up and I'll teach my students and I'll be posting content and doing everything I do. But I have to balance that with my time off when I'm not talking to anybody. My husband knows, like, come Friday night, like, please don't look at me. Please don't talk to me. Like, let me have my Maria time. We call it Maria night. Let me have my Maria night. And I just need like hours to myself to just rebuild up that energy. But I've learned that over time from self-awareness. So you know when to pour your energy into people and when to pour energy into yourself.
That's powerful, girl. There's a lot of people that don't know that. And I love the fact that you bring your husband into that conversation, because that's so important. How does he refuel?
He's an extrovert. Yesterday, he went out with friends. He was out all Friday. I was sitting at home watching Game of Thrones, and he was out with friends. And we found what works for us. And I think we have a really good balance. But I think it also speaks to the stage of life we're in. We don't have kids right now. So we have a little bit more flexibility. I get to, when I have kids, Maria and I, kids are kids. They need to talk to you. They don't care what your energy levels are at. They need to talk to you. They need your help.
I noticed that.
Yeah, exactly. You've got 6 of them. You would know. Yeah. And I kind of know, being one of 9, at least I got to see it with my parents when I was the oldest. So I got to see it. And, it's just a season of life we're in. So I'm enjoying it. But, we've struck a really good balance in our own relationship.
I love that. And what do you do to refuel together? What are things that you love?
We, since we live right on the ocean, we do beach walks a lot on really long weekends, and which is a really good moment for us to connect. I know you and Taki do as well.
We do.
It's just nice. You get a little exercise in, get a little movement. There's a dog park about half a mile from where we live. And so it's like a dog beach park. And so we go, and it's literally like exactly what I believe heaven is like. It's like 600 dogs all running around in the ocean. And so we'll walk there and we'll just like hang out. So that's what we do together.
Yeah. And the other thing that we do is, and one of the things we did last year was on our wedding anniversary, and it was Tux's birthday as well. I said, let's buy bikes, electric bikes. And that way we can have more adventures together. And so that was kind of like something that was real fun for us. Because we weren't traveling the world and having adventures across the world and countries and in new places, because we just love hanging together, but in new places and learning together. Like it's just kind of fun. And so it was like, how do we do this? Although we're kind of stuck here. And so we bought these bikes. And what was cool about it was, even when we went away, and we'll do the same in the next couple of weeks, where we'll go away with the kids and we'll take the bikes and put them on the back. And so we can just, the kids are happy to be hanging around doing nothing, and we can jump on our bikes and just adventure around within the new town kind of thing. Right. So
I love that.
Yeah.
How long have you guys been married? You guys have been together for...
Well, we've been together for a little while, but like we've been married for 21 years now.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Congrats. That's awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah.
But
you guys are close.
Yeah, we are close, but we're also so extreme. And what people don't realize is how extreme we are. So you talked about extrovert, introvert. He's an amazing extrovert, right?
Yeah.
So he wants to hang out with friends. He wants to be with people all the time. And I remember one Christmas, I said to him, okay, Taki, for the next, I can't remember how many weeks, it was something like 2 weeks. You can invite whoever you want, and I will be looking after whoever, and the doors are open. Do you know what? He literally had people over for breakfast, morning tea, lunch, afternoon tea, dinner, and it didn't just last for 2 weeks. It was something like 6 weeks. It was crazy.
Oh my goodness. I would die.
I did die after, but I love him, and I do those moments because I know it fuels his cup.
That's right. Just like Will was fine with me chilling at home, and he went and filled it. That's perfect. It's really good communication. We had to learn that.
And I think that's the key, is some of this is about communication,
Mm-hmm.
and we have not always had it right. And,
Mm.
we've gone through those challenges of,
Mm-hmm.
dude, we are so different. What the
Yeah.
heck are we doing together kind of moment?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think has pulled us together is that we love life
Mm.
and we want to bring change. Even if it's different change, we
Mm-hmm.
still want to see change. So
Yeah.
there's that commonality on that. And then it's also, I have had his back all through
Mm.
his journey, even when I don't like what he's
Mm-hmm.
doing, or I don't like, but I love him. And I think
Right.
that has been important.
That's good to hear.
To
Yeah.
remember that, although, and I think this comes back to us as a humanity race,
Yeah.
that we need to have conversations, we need to hang out, we need to spend time with,
Mm-hmm.
even when it's uncomfortable, even when
Yeah.
it's not easy to be with those people, because we don't believe in the same things, we don't have the same values at times, or we don't have, we're not liking what that person is doing right
Mm.
now. And if I
Mm-hmm.
hang with them, people are going to think that I agree
I
with that.
agree with them. Yeah.
It's not at all like that, but I love him. And I
Yeah.
think that if we can understand that in all, and have different conversations. So if we go back to even the generational thing, have young people having a voice at the
Yeah.
table, have the older generation.
Yeah.
Like, there is a lost generation of older, amazing, wise people that we are not having at the table, that we need to have at the table.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. I especially like what you said about just because I spend time with somebody doesn't mean I endorse everything that they
Yes.
do or everything they believe. Because I think that, and I think it's mostly a social media problem. I think I
Mhm.
see it like primarily on social media, but it's almost like if you disagree with me or we're different, that must, and I spend time with you, or I don't unfriend you
Yeah.
on Facebook or whatever it might be, that must
Correct.
mean that I absolutely endorse everything about you. But I think that can be really divisive.
Oh, it totally is. And here's the crazy thing about this, and it's such a point to talk about, is the fact that it is so divisive. No, what
Yep.
did you say?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was one of
divisive.
those words.
Divisive. You
That's
got
it.
it. You got it. Divisive. Yeah, yeah.
Thanks. It was one of those things. But here's the thing, and social media has learnt to feed the monster, and
That's
has
right.
definitely done a great job of
That's
that,
right.
right? But we're taking it back into society, and we're taking it back into, we are letting that be what is feeding us, and we are doing it in many, many different cultures that we are
Yeah.
creating. But here's the cool thing, but the horrible thing, we need to ask questions. And here's the problem when we ask questions. Do you know what happens, Maria? I ask so many questions because I'm curious.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go, I'm asking you a question, Maria, because I want a certain answer. That is what society has built us in.
Yeah.
When we ask questions, she just wants this answer. Do you know how often I have had to answer on a question that I've put out on social media? Well, what do you think? Where are you wanting us to answer this? Or what's the answer you're looking for? I'm not looking for any answer.
Yeah.
I am purely asking this question because I think that maybe we should ask it. And here's the other thing. Oh, I'm so sorry this is happening in your world, Kira Marie. It's not happening in my world. I just asked the question because I know, or maybe someone in my world, a client has asked that question. And I think if someone else is asking that, guess what? There's probably someone else asking that out there. And I think, wow, if we need to be, there's this need for us to ask these questions in open forums and not be slammed about it, and be able to think differently and to question it without people defriending you or putting you in a bucket going, oh, she hangs out with that person, so then now this is what
I know everything about her. I totally agree. And I actually learned this. This is one of the best things that I learned in my college experience, is that if you have a question, everybody else in the room probably has a similar question. I say, if you have a question about the homework assignment, or you have a question about what you're supposed to be doing, or when a test is, a lot of people probably also have that question. But I think to ask the question, I know that for me, to ask the question, raise my hand and be the one to like risk looking like I didn't know something everybody else knew, right? Like the putting yourself out there to ask the question.
So true.
I think that requires vulnerability, and I think it requires bravery. More so than when I was in college, more so than in that little room. I think doing it on social media, I think it requires bravery, but if what my professor said is true, and that if you have the question, other people might have it too. I think maybe there's something to be said for doing that. You know, if we're here to change and
I love
and
that.
help people, we should be asking the questions.
I love that. And I would say that because of the work that I do, which I've learned there's pieces along the journey, and people are at a different space along the journey, and I've had to learn how to communicate, because a lot of my work is working with extremes. So if we think of the global leadership space and we think of top decision tables, these can be former presidents, these can be major movement leaders, scientists with breaking innovative solutions. Like, there's some pretty cool tables I get to hang out at. But I'm also on the other extreme, hanging out at the face of humanity and the front line of it, right? And I'm always trying to figure out how can we narrow the gap between what is needed on the front line of humanity and what is being innovative and thought about and decided at top decision tables, right? So there's a major extreme. I get to talk and live in many different worlds because of that. There's such a spectrum from the front line of humanity to top decision tables. There truly is. And so my message never changes, but the way I communicate has to change. And I've not always been good at getting that out because I've not always had to do this. That was that secret sauce. I wasn't intending to be able to communicate it to the wider extreme. As long as I knew how to communicate that to who I needed to make the next decision. But as I've brought it out as a wider environment, it's been interesting seeing, just even bringing the word humanity and going, hey, humanity is not just a global issue or problem. Humanity is you and I.
That's right.
And bringing it right back to going, we face things as humans every day. We make a decision or not a decision.
I really like that. I have two thoughts. One is I want to ask you, I'm curious. I know it's a big question, but I'm curious about what you think is that gap, right? You said mentioning closing the gap between the rooms that you're in and the tables you're in and the front line. How do we close that? I'm curious to get your thoughts on that.
I think it comes to so many different things, but one of the things, or not even one, but some of the things is that I think we need to create an awareness. And that's why we're doing these conversations, is that if we didn't have this conversation today, would we grow the same way? And the awareness of what I love what's come out of our conversation, right? Like, so it's growing a different awareness. But I think that then it becomes what you don't know is you don't know. And I get that. But when you know something, there's a responsibility. There's an ownership that needs to take place. And that's the next piece of it. But then there's a change that needs to happen as well. And that's going to be different no matter where and what. And I think that change, if I think of global space right up to the front line of humanity, I think of things as there's a need for a new approach to leadership. That is a huge thing in my world. And the reason being that I think that we've put processes, systems, and like if you think of models, all that sort of thing, I think there's a need for a change up for this. And that we have to come together as humanity and go, what is going to add value to humanity going forward? What is going to be, taking away from, and making sure that we're moving in a forward direction. And that only comes about if we come together as a collective. Now, I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done for us to be able to do that and continue to do that, because these conversations aren't comfortable. And, you and I have talked about some things that could be uncomfortable if we weren't willing to talk about it. But you imagine that with lots of people that don't look the same, that don't sound the same, having this conversation. That's where we create the first piece, which is awareness. Then I think there's this other side, which is, I believe the secret advantage to life is when you know how to use the muscle of human intelligence. And that is all my work that I do around rewiring a brain to a different pattern to get actually the behavior that you want and then the result that you want to bring to the table. And I think that we as humans have this data that we have, and it comes from our environment, it comes from our thinking, it comes from our spiritual positioning, whatever it is, it makes our decision DNA up how are we using that? What if we used it in a smarter way? What if we
Mm.
could access more of our data to be able to make better decisions? What would that need to look like? And I think those things are definite things. And then I think the third thing, which is this, what if we use every time when we're making a decision, the lens of humanity as stakeholders? Would our decisions change? Would our thinking change? Would our results change? Absolutely.
I was going to say, I think the answer is yes. The obvious answer is yes. Wow, that's really cool. I like that. For me, even, I think it's so true, starting with awareness. And I think we talked about this earlier, at how much more awareness has been brought in, even in the last year and a half. Progress. I see little steps, right?
Yeah, but awareness is not enough. And I have to say that, Maria, because awareness is great, but awareness will not bring change. That's like saying the right words.
Yeah.
But nothing
What is that
changes.
called? They call it affirmative. No, not affirmative. No, it's the word where they like do things just for like performative alliance. Yeah. Where they just like, they say the words and not actually take action on it. Yeah. It's a good point. Yeah.
And so although we need to create awareness, and I think here's the other thing, Maria, I think we need to create awareness where things like imposter syndrome does not turn up, because we have to understand that it's okay if we don't think the same. It's okay if we don't look the same. It's okay if we're not the same age. It's okay if we haven't had the same background. But what is it? And in fact, if we came to the table together with a group of us, a collective, is it okay then for us to actually be okay with probably not agreeing with most things, but agreeing with something that could move the dial forward? And I want us to get to that point, right?
Yeah.
I want us, that's my whole mission of getting leaders to get together to be able to do that as a collective and go, okay, I'm doing my cool thing around here, and I want to see it change across the globe. How can we do that?
That's super well said. Yeah, well said. Well said. I love it. Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing. Firstly, if people want to know more about what you do, what's the best spot for them to get to know you?
Best spot to get to know me. I probably my Instagram. But the thing is, for me right now, with what's going on in my journey and my mission, what I'm supposed to be doing, it's literally all online business stuff. So that's 99% of what you're gonna get. And I'm super happy to share. So if you want to go to my Instagram, it's just put Maria Wendt into the search bar and I'll come right up. And that's where I'll share.
And she's, by the way, she's badass in the business area. So
I try.
Check that out if you're interested in getting in there or starting out in there, and she is so good at this stuff.
I was just going to add, I think it's important to say that really my message is I hope a message of hope. That's what I want it to be, is that, and that's what I share, is that I was a girl in a Midwest, little middle America.
Midwest.
Midwest, little America, little Ohio girl, and didn't come from money, had to, work. I was the first woman in my family to graduate college. Just had to really fight for a lot of what a lot of my peers take for granted. I had to really fight for it and be intentional with it and work really hard for it. But we talk about the mountaintop. In that sense, I have come on the mountaintop. And I share how I did it, and I share why you can do it too. I share what got me there. And that's why you should follow me on Instagram, is if you are looking for a message of hope and some practical stuff to implement, that's where you should find on my Instagram.
That's so good. I love that. Okay, girl, this has come to this time of the broadcast where
I don't know how it's already been an hour. How is that even possible?
I know, it's crazy, right? But this is the one question I do ask on every single decision table. And that is, so we've talked so much about awareness. We've created an awareness in what we've our conversation here. But remember, I said there's another piece, ownership. And so I want to ask you, what are you taking from our conversation today?
I took a really helpful thing for my own personal life, which is it's okay to spend time with people who don't agree with you. In fact, it's important to spend time, because I feel the collective pressure from my generation and the generation below me to not do that, to fully unfriend and push away anybody who sees anything differently. And so it's good to have that mentor as you say, hey, well, wait a minute, these are how we have these kind of conversations. Let's maybe not do that. Maybe that's a little bit too black and white, perhaps is the word. And so I took that away personally. And then I also took away just the need for mentors in general. I think that that's just a confirmation for me to keep doing the work that I believe I was put on this earth to do.
And boy, do we need that, Maria. Here's the thing I've learned and taken from our conversation is that just the power of role modeling. And I think that our conversation has been so powerful today, going into many layers, but on both sides of the perspective of what you bring, being in a different generation to what I bring in a different generation, and how powerful it shows when people like us are willing to have a conversation, right? Because this is all it is. And we can continue to learn from each other. And I think this has been so powerful for me, just recognizing again how important these, having, I say bringing humanity to table, but as first, but then we bring our distinctions. I don't talk about diversity. I talk about distinctions. So, there's many things that I bring to the table from my learnings that make me up and they become my distinctions. And I think you have the same thing. Although, we've had to learn how do we become who we are in life. We've had very, very different backgrounds to get to that point. Yet we are still having to make sure that as we continue this journey, because it is a journey, right? We haven't arrived. It's a journey. We're on this, but we're so much more powerful when we join together as a collective. And I think today we've been able to role model that in beautiful ways of seeing how intertwined that your knowledge is, but also that my knowledge is, and together it adds such value to create an awareness that maybe we didn't have at the start of this conversation.
I love that. I love that. Yes, very well said. Good way to end.
Thank you.
Yeah, well said. I have nothing to add.
Do you have nothing to add? Because I think you've got an amazing voice, and I always want to make sure that I give space also if there's something that I haven't said or asked or that you haven't been able to say today. And
I think I really like what you said about the conversations. I think what this does is it models, again, the word model. I think to me it models how to create a good conversation. I think if you looked at the intentionality of how we started off, you were intentional with how you started. I was intentional with how I started. And I think the fact that you did create that space is what allowed us to have this conversation. So just thinking about that for me with the conversations I want to have and how when we bring intentionality to it, at the very start, the ideas that feel safe to come out and be verbalized are the key ones, I think. So that's what I would add.
And here's the thing that I think is interesting around that. When we have conversations, I think the part of having a conversation, there's people who are willing to have a conversation now these days that maybe are an uncomfortable one. But the problem is that many don't know how to navigate that conversation.
Right.
And I think the more we can role model it out there of how to navigate these conversations to be able to get to that change point.
Yeah, well said. Well said.
Then we will be much better. And that is how we're going to narrow that gap.
And I think that goes back to what we said earlier about where like the responsibility that I've come into as my audience grows. I have I do feel a very strong sense. There's so many, between all of my platforms, there's like 150,000 women, yet mostly all girls around that follow me in the last year. And so I should be modeling these kinds of conversations and I should be showing up for these things because it's important. And I feel a sense of wholesome responsibility to be doing that kind of stuff, since for whatever reason they're interested in what I do and what I have to say. Let me use that for good.
Yeah, and that's what I've been always wanting you to get to that point, Maria.
Yeah.
Seriously. And I feel like today you've got to that point and you're going to use that platform. I think that is the most important thing as a leader, whatever leader we are, wherever we are, we need to use our platform to add value to humanity going forward. So today I want to thank you, Maria. You have been amazing here on the table.
Thank you.
I have loved our conversation. And trust me, after 5 days of a full-on events, it is nice to have such a great conversation and such a easy flow conversation. You know, and I honestly had no idea where we would go with this conversation, because I know it's been so up and down for you, and I wanted to make sure it was comfortable for you to be whoever that was and to come. So I'm so grateful you took me up on the opportunity, and we were able to hear and experience, you know, your thinking as you continue to evolve too.
I appreciate you having me on this conversation. I went and watched a couple of the ones you've done, and you've had some amazing, amazing people here at the decision table. So thank you. I'm glad to be having a seat at the table. I receive it, and thank you for it. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.